Welcome to the Practice Squad podcast. I am John and I am joined by my co host Mark, and football is back. Wow, what a week one.
Yeah, dude. I was just talking to John before we hopped on here. I'm fired up, man. Fired up. Watched a lot of good football and a lot of sloppy football. Fired up about some of the decisions, some of the quarterback play, some of the coaching decisions, uh, errors that I just haven't seen happen at such a high rate in the NFL and honestly a while. Like just there's been it feels like especially offensively and play calling wise and coaching wise, we've seen such clean football for the last few years, and it just seems like it's gotten to the point where is defense even a thing anymore, right? It just it keeps creeping into that territory of defense is just a joke, and the offenses are just too good and too organized and too sharp in every detail. And what we watched, at least from my perspective, on Sunday and on Monday, was not that.
Do you think it's because there was a lot of coaching turnover this past offseason, and there was, obviously there's plenty of player turnover every single season, but we never saw a free agency market like we had ever seen with some of those like key pieces. I feel like maybe a combination of just a bunch of new schemes getting implemented combined with a bunch of players that are just starting to gel with their teammates for the first time maybe caused some upsets, right? Because obviously all that athletic talent is still there. So it does boil down to like coaching mistakes and chemistry.
I mean, I don't know. Probably partially true. I look at I'm looking at this graphic right now, and just a quick rundown. You have Stafford was terrible, right? You have
Yeah.
Baker Mayfield. He didn't live up to expectations. Joe Burrow was sloppy. Matt Ryan was sloppy. Lamar,
Five turnovers.
I mean,
Five turnovers.
and you keep Kyler Murray looked terrible. Aaron Rodgers was not on the same page. Dak Prescott looked bad. Even Brady was kind of rusty. Yeah, Jameis had a slow first half. Trey Lance didn't live up to expectations. Jared Goff, I think, did okay. Hurts did okay. Mac Jones didn't do well, right? Carson Wentz was up and down. You just keep going down this path. Derek Carr let people down, right? Tannehill, not good. Russell Wilson, not good. And then you talk about the coaching in some of those games. Denver, Detroit,
Yeah.
San Francisco. You start to wonder. Dallas, it just wasn't good, man. It wasn't sharp offensively. Quarterback play was poor for the most part, and some guys surprised us, but a lot of the guys that we just had no worries in the world about going into the season, like, didn't show up to play. And I don't know if it was better defense or just poor offense, but I'm ready to get into it if you are.
Yeah, no, I'm struggling where to start other than the fact that really quick here too. Mark went 8-8 on his projections. I went 9-8 or 9-7 rather.
Terrible.
Um so yeah, I mean the fact that we're not predicting spreads, I've seen a lot of people predict spreads at a higher rate than we just predict winners. And I mean, there were some crazy games though, right? Who would have thought that Denver was going to get smoked in Seattle? I mean, that's maybe a good place to start just because we're coming right off the heels of that game. What an insane game to watch. Two fumbles at the goal line, horrible clock management, attempting a 64-yard field goal rather than trusting the quarterback that you just traded the franchise away for.
It's so
I
bad
mean,
on every single level, man. I mean, talk about just collapsing in a first head coaching moment for like I mean, the play calling down there, a lot of people are wonder why you're in shotgun when you're on the 1 yard line on third and fourth and goal. Okay, I understand. Listen, you're trying to spread them out, but when the defense doesn't adjust and they keep the box loaded, you're not gaining anything by spreading them out. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't. You don't. They just gonna full blitz everybody. You don't have enough guys to block them, and you're just setting yourself up for failure. Not to mention fumbling it both times,
right.
awful. So you can't even kick a field goal. And then at the end of the game, on the clock management, that entire drive terrible. You had Jerry Judy had a bad drop to start the series, never good. And then as you can start to move down the field, you're like, yeah, this is going to be, they're going to kick a field goal and somehow pull this game out, even though they played horribly. Then they get down there, and it's now fourth down, right? The third down play just happened. You have a manageable 4th and 5 or 6, and instead of
With a
calling a
minute
timeout,
left.
yeah, with a minute left, instead of calling a timeout right away, you let the clock run all the way down to 20 seconds. And I heard, the announcers a couple times were like, well, they knew they were going to kick a field goal. That's why they ran it down. I'm calling BS on that all day. They didn't know what to do. They were talking as coaches. Do we go for it? Do we kick it? What play do we want to call? That's why. And then all of a sudden they look up, they're like, we have all our timeouts left. And now we only have 20 seconds. And that, I'm sure, factored into why they chose to kick the field goal. Because even if they get that first down, let's say they only get 5 yards, it's still not an easy field goal. And now you have to run another snap. And it's like,
right.
I mean, just terrible management, just awful.
I've never seen that before, especially in an NFL game, man. To get to
awful.
the end of the game and you have all your timeouts left and you don't use them in a critical situation like that. I've never seen that in my entire life. It's crazy.
Let's go back a step even further. The third down before the fourth down and 5, the third down, they could have used a timeout and talked about what they want to do offensively and talked about their game plan. Like, hey, we're going for a field goal here. We're playing for a field goal. All we got to get is 11 yards, 12 yards, right? Our kicker makes it from this range. We just got to get 12 yards. Seattle's expecting us to try to go further than that. We should be able to get a quick hitter underneath the safeties over the backers, right? Design a play. They have 10 plays for that in their playbook easily, right? But instead, they don't use the timeout there. They don't use the timeout after the third down. And then they deserved absolutely to lose that game. And let's talk about our favorite cornball, Russell Wilson. I mean, dude, what a letdown. He did not play well, right? He did not play well going into his, enemy territory. Loved the fact that he was booed, right? I saw he had a post-game conference talking about, God took him to Denver. Dude, you chose, not God, you chose to leave Seattle because you wanted to leave them behind and go chase other things. That's why you left. It had nothing to do with his faith. It had nothing to do with any of the crap he's talking about. I'm fired up for Russell Wilson. I mean, shaking hands with people, high-fiving, and, there's no one even there doing his pregame routine with his crowd noise. Everything about him bothers me. I never have been against Russell Wilson. Really, his whole career, I've actually been a fan of his. This stuff is over the top, corny, and you can tell, dude, how many of his teammates came to see him after the game, his former teammates. I mean, DK and a couple guys. I mean, Pete Carroll gave him a 2-second half hug. Someone who coached you for what, 8 years?
Right.
You want a Super Bowl together? Like, half hug. I mean,
no, I'm really, this raises a lot of questions because of the fact that it's like, man, did Denver fix their quarterback situation? And look, we could be overreacting here. It's week 1. But like, what if Denver has another season where they struggle to go 500 yet again? Because this was not a good start. I mean, by any stretch of the imagination, Seattle has basically cleared house. They're investing in their future. Like, Mark and I had speculated they might be one of the worst teams in the league this year. And I mean, they played hard defense and they were able to squeak out with the win. Geno Smith had a great game. I mean, he was what, nearly 100% on completions for the first half.
Geno played really, really well. Denver's defense, terrible. I'm fired up about Denver, by the way. The penalties, stupid personal fouls, taunting penalties, delay of games, like a 9-year veteran quarterback like Russell Wilson and a supposedly smart head coach that Denver just hired should not have 4 delay of games and 3 false starts and offsides.
That combination should be managing the game properly.
It's unbelievable how bad it was. And then you want to talk about Denver and being nervous? They should be, because they're in the toughest division in football. And
yeah, it's exactly. Who are they playing, this next stretch here, right? They're going to see KC, Chargers, and the Raiders. They have twice each.
And they couldn't protect Russell Wilson. Now, listen, I'm not going to say Russell Wilson's a bad quarterback. Listen, it's not Russell Wilson. He's not the problem. Did he play well? No. He choked under pressure. He choked in the moment. He didn't play well. But, the truth of the matter is they couldn't protect against Seattle's defense. Okay, and that defensive line. How are they going to protect against Khalil Mack and Boza and, all the guys the Chiefs have? And you have Vegas has a good pass rush. Like, you're not going to get any worse. You're not going to get any worse in terms of the pass rush. So you couldn't even protect against Seattle. How are they going to protect against those teams in the division? It's like, I am very concerned about Denver.
Got raised for sure. And you saw in our survivor pool, a lot of people were really confident that, oh man, Denver's going to win this game, no doubt.
Yeah,
people that we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people in our 20-person survivor pool that picked Denver last night and got a strike from that. So that's crazy.
Unbelievably bad.
Yeah. Okay. Another one that I think we both are going to actually probably have a little bit more disagreement on, and I'm looking forward to the debate, is this Lions-Eagles game. And I just want to say there were coaching mistakes that were made. There were critical pass drops that were made. I have a lot of issues about that onside kick in that particular situation. But one thing that I will say about this Lions team is I have never seen better blocking and subsequently a better run game from the Detroit Lions in my 23 years existing on this planet. I have never seen them have that much control of the line. And for that reason, I think they'll be able to compete with any team because the Eagles are not a bad team. I think with Dak getting hurt, they're easily the favorite to win their division. They have a strong offensive line. They have a strong run game. And I mean, we hung in there with them for 4 quarters. I'm personally feeling pretty optimistic about the situation.
Okay, let me get the good things out for Detroit first, and I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant if you're okay with that. All right.
That is totally fine.
I agree with you. Detroit ran the ball well, and have we seen that in our lifetime? No. Okay, not consistently. DeAndre Swift looked really good. Jamal Williams was a good red zone guy, fought, broke tackles to get into the end zone. Our offensive line and tight ends blocked really well. Our game plan running the ball was good. I give Detroit credit. They ran the ball well. Their play action actually was okay. Their offense looked functional. Okay, functional enough to beat a good team. I agree with you. Now, let me get into why they lost this game. Okay, coaching first, they're terrible. Listen, Dan Campbell, likable guy, Hard Knocks favorite, right? He's been a Detroit sports. He's been the face of Detroit sports for the 2 years he's been here. Okay, he's an idiot. He's not a good game manager. He doesn't know how to manage the game at all. He doesn't know how. All he is he's a coach's player because people like him. That's it. That's the only thing he's good for. He did not know defensively in the 2-minute drill at the end of the half. The reason they lost by 3 points, by the way, was giving up that field goal at the end of the half. Calling 2 defensive timeouts in a 2-minute drill is embarrassing as a defense. You're supposed to put the pressure on the offense to go against the clock, and you're using your timeouts so that Philly can save theirs and think about what they want to call. That's inexcusable.
Yeah, or even taking that timeout before the 2-minute warning struck. Thinking about you're giving Philly a lot of time here, right?
And they're giving Philly time to game plan. They're giving Philly time to get fresh, right? They're resting their guys, and not only that, they're saving their timeouts, and the clock isn't ticking because we're using our timeouts. So that's horrible, right? And at the end of the day, and in the NFL, an error like that is what costs you the game, and that's the difference in the scoreboard at the end of the game. So that alone is terrible. Then we go, you mentioned it, the onside kick. Desperation BS, right? Like you said, Detroit Lions are reaching for everything we think we might be able to have. They were in the game. They're moving the ball.
It just didn't need to happen, right? They had such good control offensively on that drive. Why, coming off of the heels of that drive, would you want to put your defense in a bad situation there? Right? What? Because you feel like you need a 3-and-out, right? You don't need a 3-and-out. There was plenty of time left at the time, right? So you shouldn't just assume that that's the norm, right?
It was awful. It was awful. Yeah. The only reason I can think of why he's doing it, and this is to lead me in my next part of it, the only reason I can think of why he did it is because the defense was not good. Okay, Detroit Lions defensively were not good. Aiden Hutchinson, by the way, my prediction so far holding true. 120 out of 121 defensive end pass rushing grades this week in week 1. 120 out of 121. He was the second to last ranked pass rusher. That's our second overall draft pick that everyone's had this hype about. He did nothing, was a non-factor. Let's talk about the whole defense. Secondary wise, terrible. AJ Brown, over 100 yards receiving. Right?
Yeah,
play action.
He was tearing apart our secondary.
Can't tackle Jalen Hurts when he's scrambling, right? Easier said than done, I get it. But these are NFL athletes. You're supposed to be able to put the ball down when you get there for a sack, and they're not, right? So allowing big plays to happen out of where you had them in the backfield. And then not to mention just guys running wide open, and we didn't stop the run. So defensively, we were horrible, okay? Coaching, we were horrible. Offense showed some promise. But, again, you can't win football games in the NFL with a bad defense and bad coaching.
No, you have to control that defensive line. Now, in Hutchinson's defense, I mean, and this is a game of inches, I think he was a slight adjustment in his footwork and nerves away from getting 3 sacks on Hurts. There were 3 separate occasions where he got a hand on him and he just wasn't able to make the tackle. Incredibly frustrating to watch, right? Because in my head, I see that and I'm like, man, that's exactly what you draft that guy for, is to be able to make that type of play. And if he got one of those sacks, that would have killed one of their drives because they were big 3rd down plays where then Hurts was able to get loose, right? And that was the end of it. So
Shoulda, woulda, coulda, man. Shoulda, woulda, coulda. I mean,
yeah.
I had an uneasy feeling about all this hype around him, and from before he was drafted, when he was drafted, I listen. I just don't think like he's going to be an okay NFL player. I just don't think he'll ever reach that, Boza, Khalil Mack, guys like that. That's what we expect him to be, drafting him number 2 overall, and I don't see it in him. I just
Hey
don't.
man, it's week 1. I'm not willing to make any strong assessment either way there. They're also playing against a very good offensive line. Philly is a very good offensive line. So and they're a little bit banged up on defensive line too, which is not an excuse, but you have 2 other guys that are out on your D line, right? I mean, it's very much a team effort. So I'm curious to see how they play, honestly, against the football team, or the Commanders. I think that with how they played against Philly, that should be a win.
Yeah.
Actually, in our survivor pool, I picked them to win because I just think that I'm trying to pick all these shitty teams, these bad matchups first, so that I have all the good teams to work with later in the season. So we'll see what happens there. But
I wish I had that room to do that, but I already lost.
Right now, you really
I have to really be smart.
Yeah.
I'd like to jump, John, away from the Lions game. I think
no, I think we said everything that had to be
all
said
week,
there.
all season. It's going to be, obviously a big thing we talk about because we're both Detroit fans and, obviously both from here. But I like to jump into the Thursday night game because I thought that game was awesome and also terrible to watch the Rams and kind of their Super Bowl hangover. But
That was Super Bowl hangover to the max. Like, I mean, they could not get anything going on offense whatsoever unless it was Stafford to Cup. That was their entire offensive game plan.
right.
So
And here's my problem, right? Like Matthew Stafford, I'll get into him because just another right. People call me a Stafford hater. Absolutely, I am. Here's why. Okay, he was horrible. He was terrible. He looked like he's in his second year in the NFL, and he does this too often for me to consider him the great quarterback everyone thinks he is. He shows great things. He just won a Super Bowl last year and was great in that game, by the way, and was great basically that whole run. Okay. But he was terrible on Thursday night. And the
he was
Bills
not
weren't
good.
doing anything crazy. The thing that bothered me so much in Detroit, he started to do his old habits, right? Oh, the no look pass is so cool, and everyone loved when I did it in the Super Bowl because it worked, right? But what happens when you don't execute it perfectly and you do that for no reason? You overthrow it, and it's an interception. And you miss a guy inside on an easy, wide open throw, and it's an interception. And you get a ball batted, and it's an interception. Three picks from the guy that led the league in interceptions last year to start the season. Terrible. And he's in a good play calling offense. Like there's no reason for it. He's not, and they're not always playing from behind anymore in LA. There's no
Right.
reason for it, right?
I always balance out the entire, Stafford interception ratio with like, yeah, I mean, look at this dude's pass yards and touchdowns. Like it makes sense. He's throwing the ball a lot. He's going to make some mistakes. Some interceptions are going to happen. The touchdowns were not there at that game. They were not there. So you can't make that excuse. It's just bad quarterback play.
It's bad quarterback play, man. And that's
their
why
line
he
was
has
rough too. And that was the scary thing, man, is I had a lot of concerns about their line going into the season. And I think they're really going to struggle protecting Stafford this season. So
yeah, yeah, Stafford not good. Curious to see. I think they're going to struggle. They just didn't look good. It didn't even look like a hang around. They just didn't look like the same team, and it wasn't just because I think the ring ceremony and all that crap. Like they really didn't look like the same Rams team. Losing Odell, losing Whitworth, like it wasn't the same team. Now on the flip side,
the Bills,
Josh
man.
Allen and the Bills, dude, they are so exciting to watch. He is my favorite player to watch right now in football. Like that dude is a bad dude. All right. He is running people over. He's making people miss. He's playing backyard football in the NFL and he's doing it at a level like I honestly haven't seen a quarterback play like him ever. He's combining
they make
talents.
it look easy offensively. They literally they make NFL defenses look like they have no clue what they're doing against this team when they just spent the entire week game planning for everything, right?
It's insane. And I'll like highlight a few things. Like obviously his playmaking ability, when he's scrambling and running and throwing is awesome. But when he's running and stiff arming people, jumping over them, lowering his shoulder into linebackers that are, freaks of nature, and he's he's bringing the hit to them, which you just don't even see running backs do very often anymore. He's doing as a quarterback. And I mean, let's be honest here. Like they're a pass first offense. They don't even really have a great established running game. They actually run the ball because they can throw the ball. So they're actually
Right.
doing the reverse of what almost everyone else in the league does. And I love to highlight this. Jalen Ramsey got exposed, right?
Got
He
smoked.
runs his mouth. He's got probably one of the biggest egos in the league. I hate it, right? I hate it. The sense of he's better than everybody else always, nobody can hang with me. Nobody can beat me. Listen, he on the first touchdown to Gabe Davis, he just doesn't read his key, chooses to try to get his eyes on they slip away from the play action. I mean, this is on film already. This is just simple film study and not doing his job. Right, wide open touchdown, pitch and catch, can't get any easier. Then later, right, he's in a zone coverage, the one to Diggs, the bomb for Allen breaks the pocket and throws it over his head. Just lazy again, right? And not understanding, like, I mean, Stephon Diggs was in his zone the entire time and just he had no other threat and chose to just let him run right by him and try to recover too late, right? Too little, too late. I love that Diggs showed off in his face. I love that Josh Allen was talking trash to him because if you look back when Josh Allen was drafted, I don't know if you saw this, John.
I did see that. He
Jalen
was
Ramsey
running his
saying it was a
mouth at
dumb
him.
pick. It was a dumb pick. I've been saying Josh Allen's not good. I can't wait for him to be in my division because that was back when he was with the Jags,
Right.
right? And he was going to be like, I can't wait to play him. Well, guess what? You got your wish, and he torched you over and over again all night long. Back shoulder ball to Diggs on the sideline on third down, complete. Like they weren't afraid to go right at him. I love it. Most teams go avoid him. I
Right.
was so happy to see that, to see him get humbled. I like Stephon Diggs. I like Josh Allen. The Bills were awesome, and Stafford and the Rams were just, truth be told, a huge letdown.
Yeah, I mean, and look again, it's week one. You don't know what these teams are going to look like literally next week after looking at the film, recalibrating. But I mean, one thing that is absolutely for certain is that the Bills don't care who they're playing; they're ready to go. And it's crazy just seeing an offense that dominant in the modern NFL. It truly is.
I mean,
Sorry,
I'm
go ahead.
fired up, so I know I'm making some huge, like, you don't want to they always say overreact Monday, right? The day after the games happen, but like it's Wednesday. I'm still fired up about these games. And I'm sorry, it's Tuesday. And I'm still fired up about these games. And like, yeah, I mean, I got a
And it
lot of
just builds anticipation for the next week where it's like, man, like who's going to follow up, right? Because I've been saying this, man, Vikings have been
yeah,
a sleeper, right, this offseason. They had a
yeah.
loaded roster. It was just the coaching fit wasn't great. I mean, they came out swinging against Green Bay. And I said this, like Green Bay's pretty flat to start the season a lot of the time. The Saints blew them out last year. It was 38-3. Rodgers on the Pat McAfee podcast today, he was like, well, we improved in our week one play. We scored 7 points, not 3.
I listen.
So he had a good attitude about it, but I mean,
I'll give
it was dominant.
I'll give John his flowers here. He called this. Like he picked Minnesota. I was like Rodgers going to go in there and tear him up. No, Minnesota was by far the better team. It was very clear that Kirk Cousins and this new offensive system, this new play calling is going to be really good for them, right? Getting the ball to Thielen, getting the ball to Jefferson, utilizing Delvin
Jefferson,
Cook.
man,
He's
he looked so good that entire game. I mean, what an
it,
incredible player.
he's an incredible player, and honestly, a lot of it, John, is the Packers made it like easy. Like a lot of it wasn't even him being great; it was just like busted coverages and like just putting Jefferson, give them credit, putting him in a good position to be successful. But the Packers is just like, I mean, how do you not key? I mean, he's a top 2 receiver in the NFL. I don't know how you don't key him. Like he's the most important weapon on their offense, and he's the one running wide open. Meanwhile, you have like some random tight end we don't even know the name of with 2 guys on him. It just is inexcusable for the Packers defense, who I thought would be better this year, and they were terrible. Aaron Rodgers was, he was fine. There's obviously a chemistry problem with him and his new receivers. He's getting his wish, right? He wanted to
He
take.
didn't trust them the rest of the
Why
game.
would
I
you,
mean,
right? I mean, the
right.
first play of the game, you have a rookie wide out. I mean, this is what you dream of, right? Christian Watson, you're a rookie. You're lined up against Patrick Peterson, who's a legend. He's a legend, right? Like, he grew up probably watching him and like hearing about him at LSU and playing for the Cardinals. Like he's a Pro Bowl caliber player. You run right by him on a go route, and Rodgers throws one of the best. I mean, per usual, so accurate on his down the field throws, hits him right in the hands like it's a present, and he just doesn't have his hands together, goes right through his hands. Just
Yeah.
lazy. The moment was too big for him, and you saw it the rest of the game, like you said, lost trust. You could see the visible frustration on Rodgers' face expressions throughout the game.
His body language is so obvious; it's hilarious to me. Like
He,
whenever they're in a tough spot, you can see Rogers' emotions on his
yeah,
face and the way that he
it's
stands, like every
oh
time.
my
But
gosh, it's
Rodgers did say today too that that first play was premeditated. Like Watson pretty much knew he was getting the ball. They literally drew that up just so that it's like, yeah, like you might get loose here and I'm going to toss it to you. So, like you said, just the moment was too big for him. And look, I mean, it's not fun just dogging on a rookie receiver on their very first game. So we'll see. Obviously, I'm sure that receiving core is going to improve a lot throughout the year. But yeah, I mean, not a good way to start the game, and the offense couldn't find any momentum throughout the rest of the game. So
yeah. I'd like to jump away from that game because that game was just hard to watch. I'd like to give. We'll stay in the division with the Bears. I think this
the
was
rain
one of the
game.
more. It was one of the more interesting matchups of the week because of the Trey Lance Justin Fields thing. People kind of forget, like they drafted Trey Lance ahead of Justin Fields, and everybody and their brother thought that Justin Fields was going to be picked. I mean, I remember I was at the bar in college watching that draft and was like, okay, that's great. San Francisco's going to get Fields, and all of a sudden they picked Trey Lance, and it was like, what? Like, and people were like, they better be damn sure that's the right pick. And how good does it feel for Justin Fields to beat that coaching staff, to beat John Lynch, to beat the GM there, who was like, we investigated, we studied, and Trey Lance was the better prospect. That's why we didn't pick you. And for him to beat them in Soldier Field, and obviously San Francisco was the better team. Like, there's no doubt about it. But for the Bears to do what they did in the crazy weather, like that's so awesome for him. And
Missing Kittle was huge, I
yeah,
think, and I think that the rain ruined San Francisco's game plan more than it ruined the Bears' game plan. I mean, that just felt clear as day to
maybe. But
me.
I
And
honestly, I don't know because San Francisco can run the ball. Like, if anything, they were
that's
probably
correct.
glad it was raining. I don't know. Like, for me, if I'm a running team and when it rains and you play a team that you think is probably gonna have to throw the ball to beat you, I would probably be smiling before the game. Like, this works in our favor. It didn't. It didn't end up working in their favor. The Bears were ready for the moment. San Francisco wasn't. Trey Lance clearly wasn't ready to play. And Justin Fields, maybe just him having more experience is why he shined a little bit more in that moment. But, hats off to him and honestly good for the Bears, and kind of an embarrassing moment there for Shanahan and Trey Lance over in San
Yeah.
Francisco.
I mean, one thing that's for sure is I don't think anybody was expecting the standings to look the way they did today, right?
No, no, dude.
With the Seahawks at the top of the NFC West. I mean, the Bears and the Vikings are 1-0, and the
Wild.
Lions and the Packers are 0-1. I mean, it's definitely an interesting first week for sure.
Let's, if you want to go a game down, John, from there, or a couple games down, if we're looking at the graphic here, Miami and New England is another interesting game. I know we both picked Miami, but I was talking to John, like New England is just not, the dynasty's dead. There's no, last year they kind of hung around and we're like, okay, like and you were gonna say overreaction, I get it, but listen, the dynasty's dead there. Like this
I'm
belief,
not overreacting to that whatsoever, and that's not to say
it's
that they can't
dead.
be a good football team. Like they can make the playoffs. I think they'll, as long as they have Belichick kind of steering that ship to some degree, they're going to be decent. But like we speculated on this a few weeks back, where it's just that style of football, I think, is just not going to cut it anymore, right?
It's
Of
not.
just
Oh,
like
it's the
hard
stubborn
nosed kind of
ways.
old
Yeah.
man, stubborn football.
It's stubborn
Exactly.
football, man. And listen, it worked for many, many years, and it worked somewhat last year. But I'm telling you, Belichick and his stubbornness is gonna. I mean, he's gonna run himself out of a job there in a few years, dude. Like this belief in Mac Jones. Like they don't even have a legitimate offensive coordinator because he's too stubborn to go get one from outside the organization
Yeah,
that
and
that
we all
isn't
know how great Matt Patricia is
like.
as a play caller.
Matt Patricia is a defensive minded coach he's never called plays before, right? And
Yeah, I don't
especially in the NFL.
understand it. I
Like, you're
don't understand the
crazy
pick.
to think that that's ever going to work, and that's Bill Belichick's fault. That is on him being stubborn and thinking that, oh, I'll just call the OND and tell Pat Patricia what to do. And that we'll win football games because we're New England and we'll play good defense. Well, you know, Miami put up a decent amount of points on you. They moved the ball. Tua looked okay. Give credit to Miami. I think they're going to be a legitimate team this year. And New England is dead, dude. They're dead. They're dead unless they start to change and
Yeah.
adapt with the ways.
I mean,
Because
it's clearly the Bills division. So then your mentality switches from, okay, the Patriots aren't that team, but they'll be a number two given the Bills are run for their money every year. Now you can't even say that, right? The
no,
Dolphins just look like the better team. I
no,
think will continue to look like the better team throughout the season. So
the
um
Jets will beat New England, dude. Like New England is dead. They're very. You should be very worried if you're a Patriot fan. Like they are not good. They're not good.
we'll see what happens. But yeah, I mean, I don't think this take is going to age poorly. We'll just put it that way. So I'm trying to think of any other games here that really anything interesting happens. I mean, we can talk about the Bakers and the Panthers and that situation. We could talk about how the Chargers came out looking like how everybody they'd hoped to look. But honestly, I think at this point we can kind of just move on to next week and start speculating about some of those matchups. They're pretty fresh for me. I only took a quick glance at them, so I'm kind of excited to react to what we have to expect this coming week as well. If you're ready to move
Yeah,
on, cool.
yeah. I'm ready to go.
So first up, we'll have Chargers and Chiefs on Thursday. Obviously, going to be a great matchup with two explosive offenses. I mean, I think this game is going to really boil down to, can the Chargers actually contain Casey's offense, right? That's been the biggest question mark for the Chargers, is not their offense, because their offense is incredible, but whether or not their defense would actually make a few stops to give their offense a fighting chance, right? So that's my biggest question mark for that matchup. I mean, the way that they were able to handle the Raiders, who also have a very good offense at this point, it makes me feel pretty confident. I mean, they had Carr running for his life most of that game. So
Yeah. I mean, listen, I think it's pretty awesome that this is the Thursday night game. It's two in a row that are just great games. Really, two great quarterbacks, great coaches. Offensive scheme is going to be good. The defenses have been historically pretty good the last few years. I'm going to give this one to the Chargers because simply this: the Chiefs excel on offense, but they played the Cardinals, who I just don't think the Cardinals are kind of, I think, falling apart as an organization. I think it's tick 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 for Cliff Kingsbury there. The truth is the Chargers defense is much better than the Chiefs defense. And, obviously Mahomes and Herbert superstars. There's weapons all around them, but the Chargers defense is legit. I mean, the pass rush is better than Kansas City. Derwin James, they have a good secondary. Like, they're gonna put Mahomes in some difficult situations, and it's gonna be hard for him to be what he normally is. And I just think that the Chargers are the team to beat in this division, and they proved it in week one, I think, and I think we're gonna see it and kind of solidify that statement here in week two.
yeah, and it's interesting too because of the fact that the Chiefs. One thing that I have to commend the Chiefs for this past week was it wasn't over reliant on one member of that offense. They spread the ball around so much that game. So I'm curious to see if that game plan is going to work against the Chargers defense in the same way where you're just you have a bunch of competent receivers that you can spread it around to. You're not over reliant on one guy if that's going to give them kind of an advantage there. So I'll probably take the Chargers for this game, though. I mean, just from what I saw this past week, I don't think there's any reason why the Chargers can't win this game.
Yeah, it's both taking the Chargers. We'll look ahead here. The next game on the schedule, we have Miami at Baltimore at 1 o'clock on Sunday. Listen, for me, I was really impressed with Miami. I was really impressed with their play calling, their ability to do to a Belichick coach defense what they did, and then defensively, Miami's for real. I mean, again, like the Chargers, Miami's for real defensively. The defensive line, the linebackers, like they're a very good defense. They play together. They understand what they're trying to do philosophy wise, and they're doing it. They're executing it at a high level. Um, I think that they're going to go in and beat Baltimore. I think Lamar Jackson and the Ravens looked good against the Jets. Give them credit beating a not very good team, not very good franchise, but Miami's going to go in there. I think they're going to kind of pick apart Baltimore's defense a little bit, same as they did to New England. And I just think that Miami's defense is better than Baltimore's, and I think Lamar is going to struggle. I think they'll have a good game plan for him. And I think he's going to struggle to throw the ball, and they're going to have to throw the ball a little bit. And I just don't think they're going to be able to against that defense. So I'm going to pick Miami here.
I agree with you on all accounts there, and I am also going to pick Miami. We'll see where the disagreements start popping up, because I think you and I probably both expect the Browns to win this game against the Jets, especially the Jets going to Cleveland. By the way, they switched up the logo on their field, and it looks horrible. I don't know if I have the time to pull it up, but it's just like they're like mascot or whatever. It's not like a football helmet anymore.
Yeah,
Listen, it's like a cartoon character, man. It looks like somebody from Popeyes or something.
Changing your image on the middle of the field doesn't change their offseason decision making process. Like it doesn't clean your slate of signing Deshaun Watson and paying him the amount of money guaranteed that they did. But I'm with you. The good thing that the Browns have is they won a tough opponent first game with Carolina and a tough matchup with Baker. Here's the thing, like they're gonna get Deshaun back this year, and if they just have a good enough record to like maybe make the playoffs, like the Browns are very talented elsewhere, like really talented running
They
back.
absolutely
They have
great
they
running
have a
backs,
couple
great
receivers.
receivers.
They have a really good defense. I'm gonna pick Cleveland here simply because the defense. Zach Wilson probably isn't back yet, from what I've seen. It's gonna be Flacco again, and that defense is gonna be all over him. And Myles Garrett is a freak of nature. And then all they got to do is score between 14 and 24 points, and they're going to win because the defense is really, really good. I'm going to go with Cleveland.
Yeah, they're just the better team from a roster perspective. Moving on to Lions Commanders, I think Lions are going to win this game. I think the fact that the Commanders are traveling to Ford Field for it doesn't help them out. I think Carson Wentz is a super inconsistent player that once he starts feeling pressure and he feels like the game's getting away from him, he tends to make a lot of mistakes. And I think defensively, there's really not a whole lot special going on. And we saw that the Lions have a very commanding offensive line, blocking scheme, run game. And I think that strength is really going to work in their favor against the Commanders.
All right. Well, here's where things go different for us. Listen, you're totally not wrong in anything you just said. Could easily see that happening and the Lions winning. And if it was anybody other than Carson Wentz lining up a quarterback on the other side, I'd be very confident in this pick. But I'm going to go with the Commanders simply because the Commanders' defense, I think, is better than people give them credit for. Ron Rivera is a really, really smart defensive-minded coach. He's going to give Goff and the Lions offense different packages in terms of the blitz that it's not easy to prepare for. And it's going to put our young offensive line at some challenges here. And then I just think that, if Carson Wentz is able to just kind of manage the game, I think that Washington's the better team than Detroit. And listen, from what I saw coaching wise, I just think Detroit's going to get out coached. I think Washington has a good staff, and I just couldn't believe what I saw. And I don't know if there is enough time to learn from it. So I'm going to go with Washington. I think it's going to be kind of just a crazy game back and forth. Probably going to be some horrible quarterback play between Wentz and Goff here and there. And it's just going to be special. It's going to come down to like special teams and then a couple, who makes the least amount of mistakes. But I'm going to go with Washington.
So what I'm interested in with your follow-up then is, okay, you're giving Washington a lot of credit here for a team that really struggled to beat Jacksonville. What do you think about this Jacksonville Colts matchup? Are you then suggesting that Jacksonville is actually a pretty decent team, or are the Colts turds? Like, where are you feeling about this matchup?
I'm suggesting the Jags are better than they were last year. Getting rid of Urban Meyer, one of the best moves of all time for them.
Not hiring Urban Meyer would have been
great. Yeah, would have been great. But no, I mean Jacksonville's a better team than they were last year. But no. I'm absolutely going to pick the Colts here. This is a must-win game for the Colts. I mean, you have a tie with what a lot of people thought was going to be the worst team in the division. Just a total letdown. Matt Ryan letdown. I think the Colts are going to get back to what they do best. They're going to feed Jonathan Taylor, getting a little bit of the play action. Their defense is going to step up, put Trevor Lawrence in some tough situations. I'm going to go Indy. And
the tough thing here is that Indy traditionally struggles in Duval, right? So that's something to consider. With that being said, I also think I have to go with the Colts here because, man, if they're starting 0-1-1 in their own division, which a lot of people said is one of the easier divisions in the NFL between, Jacksonville and the Texans being in it. Like, where's your excuse, right? And I don't know, man. Like, Matt Ryan should be competent enough a quarterback to make that happen. So,
I agree, man.
moving on to a matchup that I, as a Saints fan, always love to see: Saints versus Bucks. Anybody that has been following this matchup since Brady era knows that Saints defense absolutely tees off on Brady every single time they meet, basically. And personally, I don't think this will be an exception. I think that the Saints, even though they struggled against Atlanta, they, all those strong points that they had last season with their defense are still very much there. I do think their offense has improved tremendously, and that we will probably see the results of that a little bit better this coming week than we did last week against Atlanta. So I am going to take the Saints.
Yeah, listen. I love the matchup, and I love this history of kind of a rivalry that's been created since Brady arrived in Tampa. The Saints have had his number, and it leads me to believe that yeah, you're probably right. But I'm going to go with Tampa here because I'll be honest with you. I was wrong. Tom Brady came out. Did he look a little shaky? Yeah, I was kind of right on that prediction, but he did enough to win the game. And he, honestly, he just wasn't as bad as Dak was. Dak was awful. The Cowboys are terrible.
Dallas just didn't look good that entire
They're
game.
terrible. But
Yeah.
I'll give Tampa's defense credit, dude. They look like one of the best defenses, if not the best defense in the league. What they have going schematically there is really, really good. They make it really hard for you to find open receivers, and they're able to get pressure with 3 or 4 guys at times, and that is really hard to throw into for Jameis, who has a history of problems turning the ball over. And we'll be honest, the Saints pulled out a win, but they didn't look great in that game. I'm going to go with Tampa here, and I just think that history's not going to repeat itself against Tom Brady. I think he's pissed off to beat them. He still remembers that shutout. He's going to come out firing, and I think Tampa's defense is going to have his back and help him out.
Yeah, we'll see what happens there. One thing that kind of scares me is Tampa's defensive line did give the Saints a lot of grief, and I don't know if you know this, but the play where Jameis tore his ACL on was against Tampa with a defensive lineman trying to bring him down by his shoulder, and he just failed to make that pivot properly and tore his ACL. So, as a Saints fan, I'm a little bit stressed about that. Obviously, want to see Jameis healthy through the rest of the season. I'm happy that we made that investment in Andy Dalton in case that doesn't happen to work out. But yeah, definitely something to be concerned of there. However, I think the Saints will come away with it. This is an interesting matchup, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's so funny thinking, going into this, you're like, oh yeah, Falcons are trash, Giants are trash, Seahawks are trash, Bears are trash. And out of those teams, they'd be 3-1. And the Falcons came real close to beating the Saints. So
It doesn't make sense. I mean, I look at this game. Baker is, going to New York. The Panthers going to New York. I have no idea who to pick. I mean, this is the game that I'm looking at on the schedule. I literally don't know. I could probably flip a coin. I don't trust Baker. I don't. He's probably really motivated to come and get a win after losing to his former team. The Giants looked pretty good, showed some guts going for 2 to end the game there. Saquon looked good again for the first time in over a year, and
right.
I think I'm gonna go with the Giants. I think it's a home game. I think that they're kind of they have some confidence now. I'm gonna go with New York. I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you for sure what's gonna happen here.
Yeah, it's a tough matchup. I'm gonna take Panthers here, just to mix it up a little bit, but two, I do think that the Panthers, one of their strong suits is their defense, and I have no indication that the Giants are, going to be able to handle that with their offensive line that has definitely struggled, and obviously Jones, who's been struggling too. Saquon might be back, and that's something to consider, though. So I'm curious to see how he does the rest of the season. Was that a fluke, or is that dude actually, about to start tearing shit up again? So I'm curious. Patriots Steelers. I gotta say, I mean, I know that you have your opinions on the Steelers and how good they're going to be this year, but I watched that Bengals game. Honestly, the fact that Bengals were even in that game and it went into overtime is crazy because I just thought the Steelers defense was absolutely tearing it up. And I think offensively they looked fine, right? So I think they'll be able to come away with a win against the Patriots here.
Yeah, I agree. The Patriots, you know how I feel about them. they're not good, and they're going against an even better defense than they saw in the first week. So Steelers defense is for real. I think even without TJ Watt, I mean, they're going to create turnovers. They're going to put pressure on Mac Jones, and they'll do enough offensively to get it done. Pittsburgh.
Falcons at Rams. I got to go Rams here. I know that Stafford struggled, but I just don't think that Falcons team is going to have the talent to match what the Rams are bringing. It's tough because I struggle to say the Rams have a home field advantage in any situation. Right. People in LA seem to not really care to go see them. And obviously with the move and everything, I don't know. It doesn't. And they've struggled at home all of last season. So,
You saw Stafford's interview? Like they prepped all week in practice for crowd noise, like it was an away game for the Bills. Like we did in college, we did that all the time. Like when we went to, I went and played at Wisconsin, right? And they're known for, crazy crowd, always loud, barely can hear people 2 feet in front of you. So we did like a lot of silent count stuff, practice that. Like Stafford was like, yeah, we practice silent count stuff for a home opening game against a big time team like the Bills. That's so embarrassing. I mean, you might as well not have home games.
I know Bills Mafia travels well, but that is crazy to think they had
crazy.
enough of a presence on the other side of the country.
Dude, it was the same. It was the same like with Cincinnati. It was the same when San Francisco came there in the playoffs. Like I'm talking playoff games, dude. Like the away team was louder than the home crowd. It's embarrassing. With that being said, they're going to overwhelm the Falcons on offense. They're going to overwhelm them with their defensive pass rush, and they'll create enough turnovers. I'm not picking the Rams because of Matthew Stafford. In fact, I think it'll actually be kind of a closer game because Stafford sucks. But I'm going to go with the Rams.
Man, leave my boy Stafford alone. That ain't right. Stafford
be hard
sucks.
on him.
Get out of here.
If we're gonna give him all his praise when he wins, I'm gonna give him everything he deserves when he loses.
Okay, well, if they go deep in the playoffs again, I'm looking forward to hearing you saying that he sucks again.
We'll see.
49ers, Seahawks. I think the 49ers are probably gonna have a vendetta like after that Bears game. I'm gonna take Seahawks I'm gonna take 49ers here. I think they're gonna beat the Seahawks.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm gonna take the 49ers. It's a bounce back game, divisional opponent. They're gonna get after Geno Smith a little bit. You put some pressure on her. And Seattle, listen, great win. I think they're gonna have a little bit of a hangover after beating Russ. So I think San Francisco, they're gonna get the 49ers very best. And I'll be honest, I mean, Seattle won, but like they almost lost that game and Denver did everything wrong and it was still, Denver missing a field goal is why they won. Like that's give Seattle credit. They won the game, but Denver did everything possible to lose that game.
They really did.
So like it's not like Seattle is some great team. So I'm gonna go with 49ers. Easy pick.
Yeah. Another easy pick is Bengals at Cowboys here. I think Bengals will come away with that one. Them missing Dak and that team again. I mean, they looked weak against Tampa. And obviously, the Bengals really struggled in that game. Joe Burrow was running for his life. He made a lot of mistakes, but we've seen how this Bengals team operates to know that they have the talent to beat literally anybody. So I think they'll come away with that one.
I'm actually going to do something different here. The Cowboys showed that there wasn't a lot to be proud of, but the one thing is their defense actually played okay, and Diggs played okay. They got pressure. Micah Parsons is still a freak. I know everyone's showing clips of Lenny, hitting him, and listen, he was engaged with another player. He wasn't even looking at him. Great job.
It's stupid drama, right? It was a cool hit, but
it was cool, but it was a good chip. He did his job, but come on, whatever. We're overhyping it. But I'm actually
going to talk about, even with look at the season that Parsons had last year. And you're trying to tell me that dude isn't an absolute freak. He's one of the best defensive players in the league.
He had already had 2 sacks in that game too, by the way. So let's not even get into that. But I'm actually going to pick Dallas here. My boy Cooper Rush, fire up chips. Legendary quarterback from Central Michigan's going to get the start. I just think Dallas is going to come out and just play good defense. I think they're going to put Burrow in some, they're going to get pressure on Joe Burrow a little bit. I don't know how well, since he's going to be able to run the ball against him. And I just think Cooper Rush is going to exceed expectations. He's ready for the moment. He's been doing this. He's actually won him a game last year when he came in as a backup. I think he's going to do just enough to get it done. I think the Dallas defense is going to do enough. And I just don't know. I think Joe Burrow is still not back yet, right? Like he missed some time with that surgery. I just think the Bengals are a little rusty, and so are Dallas. But for some reason, I feel like Dallas is going to get it done.
So we got 5 games here, but I do also want to take a pause and say Dak has really struggled with injury the past 3 years. He's missed sizable amounts of the season the past 3 years. I'm curious if Cowboys are having second thoughts about him being their franchise QB. I don't know what his contract situation is. I don't know when it comes time for them to renegotiate that or whatever, but
They gave him a big time contract, so it's not anytime soon.
that's what
And
I thought.
I'll answer that question for you. Yes, they're having second thoughts. I mean, fans were throwing trash at him as he walked off the field when he was hurt. I mean, it's just
Well,
like
that's crummy of them, but
it's crummy for
to be
sure.
expected from Cowboys fans.
Yeah, but they're impatient, man. Jerry's impatient for sure. Like, I mean, they paid Zeke and they paid Dak, and neither of them are performing. And I'd be pretty frustrated as a fan and as an owner as well. And it comes down to just it was poor decisions. I mean, it was not the right move to pay him or Zeke. And yeah, I mean, definitely concerns. The fact that they think he's going to be back in 4 weeks is laughable. I mean, he had surgery on his throwing hand thumb. He had a
Jerry's just
plate
making stuff up, man.
making stuff up because they refuse to admit like they're going to be without Dak for longer than 3 or 4 games. It's simple as that.
No, they're not going to be back with them until the latter half of the season,
Yeah,
for sure, like Thanksgiving
so
time.
it's just
So
It's just unreasonable hope. But
yeah.
yeah, let's go ahead to our next
Texans,
game here.
Broncos. I think Broncos win this one. I definitely have a lot of thoughts about the Broncos after that performance, but I also think that we can't overreact to it. I'm sure they'll recalibrate and get better, but man, those coaching mistakes were crazy. I was not impressed with how Russell Wilson played, but I also think that the Texans just aren't a very good team, and they're going to be traveling to the Broncos, and I just think they're probably going to be pretty desperate for a win after that showing yesterday. So
yeah, no, I mean, I agree. I think Denver is going to get it done. I think it's a bounce back game. It's one of those like, hey, we got to win this game. Kind of a letdown the week before. I think Russ is going to get it going in their first home game there with him at quarterback. They have to beat Houston. It's a must-win for Denver to bounce back and respond. Texans, give them credit, hanging in there with the Colts. Again, a team not everybody is given a lot of credit to. They played a good game and did enough to compete against one of the better teams in the league. They'll go in. This will be a closer game than people think, but Denver will get it done.
Cardinals, Raiders. I think Raiders win this one. I don't know about you. I actually don't even know if it's going to be close, really. I think the Raiders are a great team. I think the only reason they lost the Chargers because the Chargers are like a Super Bowl caliber team, and I don't think that is an overstatement. And as you were mentioning, I think the Cardinals are just, kind of struggling off the bat here, and I think that their entire foundation's a little bit shaky. So we'll see what happens.
I'm with you. This is not even going to be a close game. Vegas is going to put so much pressure on Kyler, and it's just, like I can already see it. I mean, with Crosby or Max Crosby and Chandler Jones. Like, I mean, you got to remember this is interesting. Chandler Jones used to be a Cardinal for a lot of years. I'm sure he's going to be itching to get after Kyler and his former team. They're going to be on him all night, and I just don't see the Cardinals offensively being able to do anything against that pass rush. And I don't think they'll be able to run the ball either because the Cardinals have struggled with the consistent running game since Kingsbury's been there. So, yeah, I'm with you. I think Derek Carr gets it together. I think they do enough on offense to get it done, and the Cardinals are going to struggle offensively.
This Sunday night matchup is really interesting to me. It just, as far as the quality of the matchup goes, it's surprising to see that the Bears and the Packers are, because I think the Packers will pretty easily come away with this one. The Packers are no strangers to beating up on the Bears year over year over year. To quote Aaron Rodgers, I own you. So I think I'm really impressed with the Bears beating San Fran, but I'm going to call that a fluke. I think San Fran's easily going to be the better team throughout the rest of the season. I got to say the same for the Packers too, right? Rough start, probably going to tee off on the Bears. I don't know if you have any other input, but
dude, I mean, you said it all. Like, let's remember who owns Chicago. It's Aaron. I don't know what his middle name is. Rodgers. Simple as that. Like that's all you have to say. He's gonna be so, pissed off from the week before. They're gonna come out, they're gonna have better chemistry, they're gonna have their game cleaned up offensively. The Packers defense is gonna get closer to firing on all cylinders, and Justin Fields is in for a treat. And it's as simple as that. Aaron Rodgers owns that city, and he's gonna own it again on Sunday night.
Yes, sir. Now, these last two matchups, maybe there's the biggest room for disagreement because honestly, I think we've been pretty in sync throughout all of these. I think we may have deviated from one another only 2 or 3 times here. So Titans versus Bills. Man, cool that we get 2 Monday night matchups, by the way. I cannot bet against the Bills here. I mean, they just look so good. This Titans team is known for, choking games as we saw literally last week. And I just think like they're not going to be ready for what the Bills got going.
Dude, I'll just put it out there. The Bills might not lose a game. Like that's whatever. Say it's an overreaction. Like the Bills, if they like, let's keep in mind it's not just what they did on Thursday night. It's what they did in the playoff game with the Chiefs. It's what they did with New England in the playoffs. It's what they did basically most of the regular season last year. This offense is damn near perfect and actually had a perfect game against New England in the playoffs not too long ago. And they just played really well. They beat. I forget what the final score of with the Rams were, but I mean, Josh Allen, like they turned the ball over 2 or 3 times and still won by like 3 possessions. Like they're not even close to playing perfect football, and they're beating up on the defending Super Bowl champs in LA. Like they're going to destroy Tennessee. I seriously think the Bills might lose 1 or 2 games all year.
Yeah, I
So,
mean, it's
and
tough because, Tennessee, like in theory is a good team, right? Like they were people forget this, but like they had the best record in the AFC last year. And
yeah,
man, they just always struggled to show for it. So I mean,
Buffalo
look, I think it's still
for
going to be a
sure.
good game, but yeah, I think Buffalo's got it.
Buffalo for sure. Josh Allen in prime time.
Now, Vikings and Eagles is also a really interesting matchup to me because of the fact that, like, I think both of these teams are like those like underrated teams that people aren't really giving a lot of credit to. That like I think have everything they need to go on a deep playoff run. So it's going to be a sweet matchup. I think like both teams got something to prove in that exact regard, is that they can beat good teams and win consistently. So. Uh, I think with it being at Philly, I'm gonna have to go with the Eagles here. But man, that's a damn good matchup, and I think it's gonna be a very close game.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with I mean valid points, right? Both these teams, I agree with you. Like there were those 2 teams that no one really gave a lot of credit to, but like after their week 1 showings, reasonable, to think that these teams could contend and be playoff teams and make some noise in the league. I'm gonna go with Minnesota. Um, I just like the way that they're able to pass the ball. I mean, Minnesota's offense is similar enough to what the Lions just did last week to Philly in terms of running the ball a little bit, play action, getting Kirk Cousins, down the field with Jefferson and Thielen, utilizing, Delvin Cook a little bit. And the Vikings defense is better than I thought they'd be. And really, like, I think they're going to give Jalen Hurts a little bit of a problem. And I'm going to go with Minnesota. I think they get it done. Minnesota looks a lot better than I thought they would. And I think they're going to maybe push for that division and definitely win this game. And I honestly don't think it'll be as close as people think. I think they get it done offensively and just have no problems moving the ball up and down the field on Philly. So I'm going to go
For
with
sure.
Minnesota as the last game pick there.
Awesome. Yeah, we breezed through that, and I think I'm really looking forward to this next week. Right, I want clarity in all these teams where it's like, man, was that a fluke or is this team actually good, or was that a fluke or is this team actually bad? So definitely looking forward to week 2. I don't know if there's any other conversation topics you wanted to bring up before we wrap up here, Mark.
Yeah, I mean, I just again like just to reiterate, I guess what we originally talked about, like awesome that football's back and just so cool to just have like a full game slate, right? Like watching college, watching the NFL on Sunday, on Thursday, Sunday, and Monday. High school's in the full swing of things. Like just so good to be back, so good to have it all back. It's just the best time of the year, in my opinion. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot of interesting matchups in week 2, but week 1 kind of showed the NFL is weird and
Anybody can
sure.
beat anybody. And
Anyone can beat
that's the
anybody
best
in the
part about
NFL.
this league.
People got to remember, no matter how bad or good we think these teams are, everybody's good. Everybody in the NFL they're all freaks of nature, the best in the world to do what they do. And I mean, the coaches, we can hate on them all they want, but they're there for a reason. Like, they're going to figure stuff out. So you never know who's going to win. Our picks are probably going to be terrible again.
And
And
I'm
that's
looking
just
forward to making fun of ourselves and each other. So should be a good time. Until then, hope you guys enjoy your next NFL Sunday and the entire weekend. And we will see you guys here next week to recap how probably poorly that we did pick in these games. Till next time.